July 25th, 2024 meeting of the Yorktown Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is Gordon Fine. I chair the board. Joining me tonight is Bill Gregory, John Meistrick, Anthony Tripodi, still unpacking, Bob Fahey, Glenda Daly, our special counsel, David Chen, our recording secretary, Nazreen Khoury, our assistant building inspector, Steve Fraietta, our newest member, Anthony Altamari, who's in the audience, just keeping notes for next time. Before we begin, I just want to say a couple words. I've been on this board now for 29 years, the last 18 as its chairman. I've enjoyed being on the board and found it to be a rewarding experience to do my part for the town. Most of the members on the board with me tonight have been on the board with me for most of that period of time. But now it's time to turn to the next chapter in my life, so this is going to be my last meeting of the Yorktown Zoning Board of Appeals. The next meeting in September is going to be chaired by John Meistrick, our new chairman, who was just appointed by the town board. And Mr. Altamari is going to be taking John's seat on the board. So with that all being said, I would like to thank the town and the town employees and everybody associated with the board for helping me out these past 29 years. And I look forward to the next 29 years somewhere else.
Rehabilitated yourself?
Yeah, going back out into society. That being said, let's move along. First order of business is to schedule the next meeting. Now, we don't have a meeting in August, so the next meeting is in September. So the next meeting is September 12th here in the boardroom at 6:30. The site visits will be September 7th. And if you have to do mailings for your application, the mailings must be sent out between August 19th and August 28th. If they're not sent out between those time periods, we will not be able to open your hearing the next time around. You also need to post your sign on the property conspicuously and bring in the sign affidavit along with a photograph of the sign on the property. In order to determine who you send the notices to, you need to go to the tax office here in Town Hall, tell them you're doing a zoning board application. They will then show you the names and addresses of those parties you must notify. Write those names down on the sheet that we give you with your application, so you could turn that back into the building department along with the proof of mailings. When you send the mailings out, they do not have to be sent out certified. They only have to be sent out with certificate of mailing, which is proof that it was actually sent out from the post office, first-class mail. Okay, moving on. Minutes from the June meeting. Everybody received copies of them? Comments, questions? Okay, I move that we approve the minutes of the June meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. New business. Davis at property address 90 Timberlane Court, application for renewal of an accessory apartment that requires a special use permit. We refer that to the building department. We'll handle that administratively. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Alvord, property address 595 Madison Court, application to construct a new garage over an existing footprint of a garage with a side yard spec of 3.6 feet where 15 is required. We'll refer that to the building department, set it down for a site visit on the 7th. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Cicero, property address 1575 Journey's End Road. Application for variance for a combination of wall and fence with a height of 7.5 feet located along the front property line where 4.5 feet is allowed. We'll refer that to the building department, set it down for a site visit and public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to the adjourned agenda. Anybody here on the Damiano application at 756 Hanover? Because that's being adjourned. So that's adjourned to next month. Cunha is Summit Street, that's also being adjourned. Saccio at 2261 Ridge Road, that's for a chicken coop, that's also being adjourned. These are all adjourned at the applicant's request. And Catalati, which was an application for accessory apartment at 1543 Hanover, was withdrawn by the applicant. Moving on to the public hearings, we have Short. Anybody here on that? Short? That's an accessory apartment. We'll come back to that one. Sure.
As long as it's short.
Assistant Building Inspector Steve Fraietta. I went to this property, and the woman is an elderly person. She was not going to be able to attend, so she.
Well, it's renewal. She doesn't have to.
Yeah, and that's what I told her. So somebody's going to be here unless
Yeah.
somebody wants to.
No,
talk
I'm just
about
going to do it at the end since no one's here. Ahmed is also renewal. Anybody here on that? Ahern, or Ahern, whichever way, Ahern. That's also renewal, we'll handle that at the end. Conrad, you're number one.
Come on down.
Application for variance to allow,
An 8-foot fence.
yeah, it doesn't say feet, must be 8-foot fence
Right,
located in
8-foot
the rear
fence.
yard
To-
where 6.5 feet's allowed at 1225 Williams Drive. Did you file?
I don't have the files.
Good evening. Your name, please?
Virginia Conrad.
This is an existing fence?
No, would be a brand-new fence.
Okay, let's see what we have. And what's the basis of needing the extra height?
Well, my neighbor's property that's a higher elevation of mine has turned their backyard into basically a parking lot, and I'd like not to see the cars.
I think I saw a picture of this in here.
You were out there Saturday.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you want to put on top of that, like, retaining wall that's there?
Yes,
Okay. It's only facing the rear end of their property anyway.
So is it 8 feet on top of the retaining wall?
Yes.
8 more feet? Normally, don't we count retaining walls as part of the?
Well, you
it's
gotta
not
look,
actually on top of the retaining wall, it's on the, like, 2 feet away from the retaining wall where the property goes uphill.
John,
Yeah, I'm looking at that on my iPad, but. So is that, I'm looking at this picture right here.
Mm-hmm.
That's towards your neighbors, I would assume, with
Yes.
the cars?
So if I put that fence up, it
It's
would
on-
probably go to the middle of that truck only. It's that much of an, yeah.
So you'll still see the retaining wall?
Yes.
That's your retaining wall, basically, I guess? And it's gonna be on top of that, behind it.
where is our building
So
department?
the fence is gonna be, you've got the retaining wall. You're gonna set that fence past the retaining wall up on the
Yes.
hill? Okay. So it's really not on top of the retaining wall.
Do we have a
on
memo
the
from
slope.
building department in here?
It should be.
I don't see it. I don't see it in here. Unless I'm
Oh.
missing it somewhere.
It is.
It's there.
Well, it's facing you, it's not facing me. Okay, I have it in the file. Dated July 8th, signed by Steve Frietta, and they have no objections. Okay. So I see you have in the file here a photo of, or sample of what the fence is supposed to look like?
Yes, that's the
So
one.
is this the one?
Yes, that's the one.
So,
Or it's similar to that. I can't really see. It has opening on the top.
Yeah,
so there's no good or bad side, they're both the same.
That's right.
something like that, right?
Yes.
Anybody in the audience have a comment on this application? Judging from the topography of the land and where and where the fence is supposed to be situated, I don't see a problem with allowing the 1.5-foot variance. Anybody on the board have any issues with that?
So, not really an issue with that, but will you be able to maintain the wood fence from the other side? You still have like enough property if you have, like, or you're right on the property line?
It would be
Sometimes
very
we have
close.
issues
Yeah,
with
it would be very
that.
close to the property line.
It's kind of a personal
As far
choice in
as,
a sense, because you are trying to block the neighbor. I don't know if that means there's any, you would have a problem accessing
no,
that
it's not the
side.
neighbor itself.
Just the
It's
stuff,
just what
yeah. The
the
view.
parking lot.
It's a wood fence or
It's a wood fence. They don't recommend painting it or doing anything to it.
Is it vinyl coat or
because-
just wood?
Just wood.
It's like cedar, I guess cedar or something.
Yes, they don't recommend doing anything to it because it can warp in the
Yeah.
sun.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. I move then that we grant the application to allow for variance to allow an 8-foot fence in a rear yard located at 1225 Williams Drive with the usual stipulation. This pertains to requested variance only, not the remainder of the property line, and that the fence be constructed in substantial conformity with the type of fence that's delineated in the file. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. McCann, come on up. Application for an addition requesting a variance for a side yard setback of 36.27 feet where 40 is required at 3701 Crampond Road. Good evening.
Hello,
Your name, please?
Robert McCann.
Okay, you want to run us through your application?
Sure, we're looking to add on a living area on our house, which would go past the allowable area on our side yard.
What's going to be in the living area that you're adding?
We're just adding a larger living room. Right now, we have a shared living room, dining room, kitchen, so we were just looking to add a living space.
So it's a one-story addition?
Yes.
So you probably looked at this with the corner, it's a corner lot, so I assume we got it all right with the,
Yes, they did.
what we're asking for.
We have a memo from the building department dated July 8th, signed by Steve Frietta. They have no objections. Let's see. These are plans that you submitted? That's the survey. No. And you're not gonna have any living space in the, under the roof?
No.
No,
That's just storage space or just nothing?
it's gonna be a cathedral ceiling.
Okay. All right, is there any changes that you're thinking of making to these plans?
No, those,
No.
those plans are
No.
as is.
Once we, if we approve it, kinda stuck with the plans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you wanna change it, you gotta come back. Okay, anybody in the audience have a comment on the application? Doesn't appear from what's been submitted that'd be any negative impact on the neighborhood if this addition were allowed to go with the variance requested. What is this? I would move therefore that we approve the application for an addition requesting a variance for side yard setback of 36.27 feet, where 40 is required at 3701 Compound Road, with the usual stipulation that this pertains to the requested variance only, not the remainder of the property line, and that the addition be built in substantial conformity to the plan submitted. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Yes.
Old Crampon Road.
Okay.
Yeah, you said problem.
It says it on here. I just missed it.
Okay. The same thing happened last month.
You'll be okay.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.
As long as,
And,
as long as you build it at the right address.
Thank you for all your years.
Thank you. Girardi? Application to legalize an already built deck that requires a side yard setback of 4.5 feet where 10 is required, and a legalization of a shed that requires variances for a side yard setback of 2.9 feet where 10 is required, and a rear yard setback of 7.8 feet where 10 is required at 1439 Trout Brook Road. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Dominic Rena from Site Design and Mimo Design. So Mr. Girardi, he's looking for a variance for, side yard for the deck, and also a shed,
How long's the deck been there?
maybe.
You gotta come up. It's in the rear of the house, we said?
It's in the rear.
It's in the shed corner.
No, the deck I'm
The
talking
deck's in the,
Deck's in the back.
it's in the rear.
about. Okay,
Yes,
I
this
was
side.
looking at the front
side.
photo. How long's the deck been there?
30 years.
The original deck was about 36 years ago.
Okay.
And same footprint, or did you expand the deck?
Expanded,
Expand.
Okay, and how about the shed? How long's that been there?
same amount of time.
Is the shed built on any kind of foundation, or can it be easily moved, or if you move it, will it fall apart, or what's the story with that?
It's just on a, like a railroad tie foundation that I put in,
Was it the wood or metal?
wood.
We have a memo from the building department dated July 16th. Decks were built on grade, no objections to granting relief.
So, the deck is basically ground level that we're talking about,
Yeah,
right?
it's basically
It's
like
maybe
right at the grass
one-
level.
Yeah.
One joist above the grass, so there's a main deck that's a little bit higher.
Right, one step
Yes.
up.
Almost like a patio,
Extension.
I would call it.
And part of that is actually in the ground because of the slope of the land.
Right.
Anybody else? Anybody in the audience have any questions on the application? Okay. Inasmuch as the shed and the deck have been there for the period of time that they've been there, it kind of become the character of the neighborhood, so it's not really gonna change the character of the neighborhood if it's granted. It's also not a raised deck, and the shed is in what we usually refer to as the shed corner, where people usually put their sheds, even though they're not allowed to technically. So I move that we grant the application to legalize an already built deck that requires a side yard setback of 4.6 feet where 10 is required, and to legalize a shed that requires a variance for a side yard setback of 2.9 feet where 10 is required, and a rear yard setback of 7.8 feet where 10 is required at 1439 Trout Brook Drive. Do I have a second?
Second.
Also, this pertains only to the requested variance, not the remainder of the property line. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Does that mean everybody's here for the last one on the agenda?
No, they're about the renewals.
Yeah. 76 Route 6 Holdings, Inc. Same firm, new counsel?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Jacqueline Cohen of Zarin and Steinmetz. I am filling in for David Cooper tonight, who is the primary counsel on this application. David Steinmetz is also going to be joining us tonight. He is on his way here from the
hurry.
meeting. What's that?
At a hurry.
Oh, don't worry, we got this.
Let me just read what it's for.
Yes, absolutely.
Applicant requests a variance for construction of a new building with, excuse me, 101-foot setback from residential district, requires 200 feet at 76 Route 6. Okay. Why don't you run us through your application?
Absolutely. And also with me tonight is Pat Cardellini from the applicant, as well as Jason Snyder from Beatty and Watson, the project engineers. So we are here.
There's a lengthy letter here from your firm. I'm not going to read it because I'm assuming you're going to go over everything that's in it.
No, I will not go over everything.
No,
that's
but
in it.
I don't have to read it, is what I'm saying.
Oh,
Into
no,
the
I
record.
mean, of course, it's, and
It's
of course.
part of the record, I just don't want to read it into the record if you're
Oh,
going to go
of
over it
course.
anyway.
Yes, we will be here all night.
Okay.
But yes, we will take you through the project, explain what we're doing, explain the variance that we're requesting. So, as you know, we're here tonight for an area variance to allow a 101-foot setback from the eastern property line of the property that borders a residential district. And we are seeking approval to construct a recycling facility, parking, outdoor storage, and related improvements on an 18-acre property in the I-1 zoning district, in which the recycling facility is an as-of-right permitted use, and the outdoor storage is a special permit use subject to planning board approval. So, as you know, we were previously before your board back in May on the question of whether the 200-foot or 100-foot setback applied to that eastern boundary. So your board determined that the 200-foot setback does apply. And as a result of that, the applicant did look at other options for the site, for other layouts on the site. As you know, it's an odd-shaped site. It's an L shape, and there are site constraints on the property. However, we did locate a layout that could be possible on the southern portion of the property. And there should be, Nazreen, if you could pull up, there is one of the sketches.
You know which one?
Let's see.
You know which one?
Let's see. You scroll down. I believe it should also be, it might be in the set.
What, this one?
Yes. Or I think our engineer sent in a link earlier today that had it in as well.
This one?
No. Do you know?
In the beginning? Okay, hold on. Sorry. Okay, hold on. This one?
No, not that one. Might be the next one.
Oh, the next one, okay, sorry.
or the one above, yeah, that one right there. Yes, that is it. So we did look at a siting at the southern portion of the property, which is possible without zoning variances. However, as we'll show, this option is an inferior option because of its proximity to Route 6 as well as the residences on Gay Ridge Road. And it would also require additional encroachment into the wetland buffer on that southern portion of the property. And so we wanted to touch on with your board the project operations tonight. We know that there has been some concern by the town and the public about potential impacts for the use itself. This is a fully enclosed operation. They will only accept commingled recycling and construction debris. All processing, all dumping will take place entirely indoors with doors closed. And they are also subject to strict DEC regulations, including monitoring, reporting, random
What
inspections.
does commingled recycling mean?
Commingled, so it is, do you want to explain?
Good evening. So the couple of things
give
that
your name first.
Pat Cardelemi. So the couple of things like she explained that we'll accept will be construction debris, which will be like sheetrock, wood,
I understand what
stuff like that.
construction
And then
debris
the
is.
other
What is
process,
commingled debris?
commingled recycling is bottles, cans, aluminum cans, glass, and cardboard and newspaper
Okay.
for recycling. You want me to go through more of the operations?
And actually, before we do have an updated plan for this preferred. It should be, do you know what the name is?
You know which one? Exhibit 1? No.
Believe it was sent today.
Email?
Yeah, through a link from Margaret McManus.
I don't think.
But while we are going, Pat, do you want to take them through the operations?
Yeah, take you through the operations a little bit. While she's doing that, I'll just take you through some of the operations and stuff that will go on at the facility. So the way we have the layout that we're requesting, the entrance would be off of Navajo, and there would be a scale house at the beginning of the property. At that scale house, that's where trucks would weigh in. There would also be a visual inspection of the trucks and the loads at that time.
That's outdoor.
That's outdoor, so they'd come in. They would be fully enclosed. They have to be tarped when they get on the property. If they're not tarped, they get kicked off. They have to come back with the tarp on the property. So that would be the entrance on this plan you're looking at. You see a little box by the entrance of Navajo. That would where the scale house would be. The trucks would go up past the parking lot, over the wetlands, and up to the building. The first part of the building would be an office. Second part of the building would be maintenance. And then there'd be two other sections. Those would be where the recycling center process would happen. The first section of the building, which would be a 4-door section, would be where the construction debris is disposed of. It would be dumped into the building there. There'd be a series of 3 doors for trucks to back into. Trucks would back in, doors would open, doors would close by the time they get into the building. They are fast open doors. They're about 7 to 8 seconds open to close process is the ones we're proposing to put in there. Trucks would dump the debris in the building. They would pull out and they would leave. There will be another door that bigger trucks, tractor trailers, that would take the things off the property that aren't being recycled, and they would go to other sites to dispose of the stuff that cannot be recycled.
How many trucks per day do you estimate?
So it all depends on what the DEC allows us to take, because they're the ones that will permit us based on building size, hours, and all that information. So it's anywhere probably between 60 to 100 trucks in and out is what we're probably proposing
During
would
what
probably be
time
there. Anywhere from, what we're asking for is from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., so within a 12-hour window. So that would be the construction debris side. In the building, there will be processing of the construction debris, so things that are recyclable will be removed out. Unpainted wood that can be recycled. Shingles, if we can find a place to recycle them. I've actually been talking to the gypsum plant in Buchanan. They will take sheetrock to recycle back. Any concrete that can be recycled will be taken out. Wood, all that stuff that can be recycled will be taken out so it doesn't go to landfill. The second part of the building, which will be the furthest part north, would be the recycling side. So there'll be 2 doors in that building. Trucks will back in, dump out recycling. It will be sorted through with either a machine or by hand. That process will pick out what is recyclable. There will be some stuff that isn't recyclable that will come out, that will be handled, and that will either end up going to an incinerator or a landfill. And then that process, that they will be separated out, they'll be baled, and they'll be shipped to recycling facilities to be repurposed. So that would be cardboard, newspaper, bottles, cans, that'll all be reused. So trucks will enter into the property and go out via that one entrance. So all of this, like I stated earlier, is regulated by the Department of Environmental Conservation. We have to get a permit through a process through them. They'll have a lot of input in site layout, in turning radiuses, in noise. So one of the things you have to do with the DEC in regards to noise is every year you have to do a noise study to the property line. And they have a threshold that you have to be at. It's 65 decibels you have to be at the property line. Anything over that, you get a violation from the Department of Environmental Conservation. So there'll be a study. We'll have to hire an outside firm that once a year will have to do that study. So that's noise. They will also come and do random inspections throughout the year. The applicant, us, will actually have to pay the DEC a monitoring fee every year, and they'll send monitors to come in. They do random inspections on the site. They also will regulate truck traffic in and out. They'll regulate how much waste is in the building, how much waste we can take, how much waste goes out. Every year we have to report the amount of tonnage that comes in as well as the amount of tonnage that goes out. And we ourselves have to do tracking on that. We have to do tracking and inspection on random loads, as well as train our employees what to look for in loads that can come in, because there will be things that aren't allowed that we'll have to reject, reload in the trucks, or dispose of some other way.
What size trucks are we talking about?
So the trucks will vary. So most trucks will be regular roll-off trucks with anywhere from a 10 to a 40-yard container on them. So they're roughly about 35, 36 feet long. Those will be the trucks that will be coming in mainly. There will be some 53-foot trailers that will come in that will pull out debris that isn't recyclable, but those will be a lot less. Maybe 5% of those will be coming in and out. More will be regular, probably about 30-foot, 35-foot trucks would be coming in and out of the property.
The sorting process to determine what can be recycled on site and what has to leave site, where is that going to occur?
All in the building.
In the building.
Nothing will be done outside at all.
And when you process the material, where do you store it before it leaves?
In the building, in containers in the building.
Everything is stored in the building, nothing is stored outside?
Nothing at all is stored outside. We're not allowed to by the DEC or by your code to do anything outside.
Okay.
The DEC regulations are very strict in that, and they've actually been updated 2 years ago for that. And every facility has to come up to code within a certain amount of time, that everything has to be inside the building. So there are other facilities in the area that are not inside a building, but since we are building this facility new, it has to comply with the new regulations with everything is inside the building.
Just as a note, the SECRA, the Environmental Impact Study, the planning board is lead agency on that.
Yes.
So regarding how the material comes in, so for, say, construction debris, where is, like, specifically that coming from? Individual contractors, or I guess when somebody rents a dumpster on a project, is that what comes in?
Yes.
Okay.
So the site will be open to the public. So you could come in if you renovated your house and bring sheetrock and wood to the
Okay.
facility, as well as contractors can come in, as well as other haulers can come into the facility. So it'll be open to the public. Also, residents can bring in recycling if they have it as well. So it'll be completely open to anybody who wants to
How
come.
do you handle asbestos and lead?
So asbestos won't be coming to the facility
If
based
I'm,
on.
If I'm packing a dumpster and I want to be nefarious, I bury it in the bottom of the dumpster and it shows up at your premise. How do you deal with that?
So that, again, will be, the employees will be trained by the DEC. There are strict standards that we have to train the employees of what to look for. So if that does come in a load as they're sorting through it, it'll be segregated, put to the side, and it can either go back to the person who brought it in, or we can dispose of it legally the way we want to. It's in the operations plan, which will be developed through the process with the DEC. Those processes will be laid out of exactly how that would be handled. The good thing is about nefarious people doing that on bigger jobs, well, like let's say we knock down this building, hypothetically, the towns are in charge of that, right? So the towns are in charge of making sure people that are doing demolitions do asbestos reports first, asbestos studies, and it's abated, and that is checked in by the Department of Labor.
And if you're working as a homeowner and you buy an older home, there's going to be asbestos, there's going to be lead, how does that get disposed of, and, you know, how do you guys handle that? I mean,
Yep.
if you're gonna come in and dump it out, I don't know how you sort through that.
Yeah,
You
so.
dump the dumpster and you see it?
Yep. So what they are, they're trained to spot that. So they will see the asbestos, and what they'll do is they'll segregate it, and it will either, like I said, either go back to the hauler who brought it in, or the resident who brought it in, or we can put it to the side, put it in a container, and dispose of it properly. So asbestos usually goes to a landfill. Same thing like construction debris does, just in a different cell in a landfill. Same thing with lead paint. They treat them the same exact way.
So, recycling that comes in, that's from municipal,
Yep.
does that get aggregated before it comes to you, or is it each individual, like, refuse truck, whatever it's called, that comes to my house? Is that what is gonna be coming to you?
So it'll be a mixture of residential and commercial. So you'll probably get a lot of residential from Putnam, because Putnam has no facilities for disposal of it. There is also towns in Westchester that aren't part of the IME agreement with the county. So Somers, Mount Kisco, those areas that private haulers will haul out of. Everyone else, like in the town of Yorktown and most of the towns in Westchester, that all goes to the Westchester County facility. So that's where you'll get your recycling from, and you'll also get your recycling from commercial establishments.
But what specifically comes to you? It's each individual truck that was riding around the streets, and they come to you, and then they go back out?
Correct.
All right. And so would you have contracts with these towns, or is it just they show up and you're there?
No, so every customer has to have an account set up and have a contract beforehand, because we need to know who's coming and what material they're bringing. So that, again, will be regulated by the DEC. So we have to give them every customer. We have to give them exactly where the loads are coming from. We have to check the loads, and that'll all be in a log every year that gets submitted to the DEC. Also, like I said, everything that goes out will be tracked as well, of where it went and the ultimate disposal facility was.
So when the DEC does their approvals or monitoring, it's two separate things that you're discussing, like the construction debris and the recycling. Are they counting all of that and counting the trucks coming in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So it's all under one permit, and it's all calculated on the same forms, but it is all tracked by the DEC, both of those.
And they're going to basically say you're allowed this many trucks per day.
Yep, they usually base it on a tonnage by day and then a total by week. But also, if you, just so hypothetically speaking, if you're allowed 600 tons, right, and you don't truck out enough and your building gets full, you're shut down. They will not let you take any more material in. So it's not like you're allowed 1,000 tons and you can just pack the building with 1,000 tons every day and never get rid of it. They come, they regulate how big the pile is in the building, and they will stop you from taking it. And they do it every day to other facilities.
But it's tons per day or trucks?
Tons per day.
They don't care about the number of trucks?
No. Trucks don't matter because it varies, right? A truck could come in that could be a 40-yard container and have 1 ton, and a 40-yard container with 20 tons. So it all depends on tonnage is what they regulate it by.
What's the difference in the plans between the one that requires the variance and the one that doesn't require the variance?
And I also just want to clarify one thing on the outdoor storage. So there's no waste being stored outside. All waste is going to be stored inside. But there will be empty containers that are outside, which is why we're seeking the special permit for the outdoor storage.
Okay.
So just to
So
clarify.
the outdoor storage would be containers,
Empty, yeah.
and the special permit would have to be granted by the planning board.
Planning board, correct.
And this operation is only from 6 in the morning to 6 at night? Is there any nighttime, like, are you moving dumpsters, dropping containers, do any of that at night?
No. And again, the site constraints and the time will be, again, dictated by the DEC. So it might not even be 6 to 6. That all depends on what they give us.
All right. I'm concerned about, midnight and 6 in the morning. I don't think people want to hear dumpsters being loaded or dropped or banged or whatever, that type of thing.
If you could just go back to the last one that you had up. So this here is the proposed plan. So we had actually, and what you're looking at here is the proposed plan. In the back, that is the proposed development that is currently subject to a zoning text amendment from the town board. We had put that up there at the request of the planning board, just so for future planning purposes that we could, if there for future development, to see what potential impacts could be back there, which is why it's on our site plan. So what you're looking at here, we show here how far back that the proposed recycling facility building is from Route 6. So you have approximately, over 500 feet from Route 6. That is, most of that is going to be substantial, dense vegetative buffer. You're also, the topography, it's uphill a bit, so it will be effectively screened from Route 6. And again, you have the Whispering Pines to the east there, and the closest residence, at least the closest existing residence as of now, is over 800 feet away. And again, we chose this plan to move forward with, despite the variance, because of the opportunity to take advantage of that vegetative buffer to effectively hide the building in the back there, to reduce, any potential.
So where would it be without the variance?
So where it would be, so that was the second plan.
And this plan also decreases the disturbance to the wetlands as well. The preferred plan also decreases overall disturbance to the wetlands, which are in the front and regulated by the DEC as well.
So this is the alternative plan that we proposed, and again, it basically flips the parking lot and the building. So the building is now in the southern portion of the site. It would be within the 200-foot setback from the center line of Route 6. You're also still over, still over 400 feet from the closest residence. However, you're still going to be much closer than the location up further in the property. And again, you're going to have, there are more wetland buffer on the southern portion of the site that constrains the property. So there would be some more encroachment without the need for that variance.
So, looking at this plan, in the green area, there's some like tan-shaped squares I can see. What are those? Whenever the property is like in green, then I see these.
The other property.
Oh yeah, so that is, so
What are
those,
buildings?
Yeah, that's
the rectangles.
That's the proposed overlay zone site plan.
Okay.
So those are the, yeah, so
Are
the,
they
Has nothing to
existing?
do with
I know.
this.
Well, I'm just wondering if they're existing buildings?
No.
or-
No.
Yeah, it's a proposed potential if.
Right.
yeah, they're not existing. The planning board just asked us to put it on because they are currently considering a zoning text amendment that could allow this residential development to go there. So that's why, that's what those orange rectangles are.
Yeah. I'm going to break in here because we sent this out for several different referrals to different agencies. I want to go through the memos that we received from them. We have a letter from Westchester County Planning Board dated March 27th.
They submitted that to the planning board and they had the same comments, so he sent the same letter.
Okay, so I'll put it into our record is, their comments are as follows. The referred project as submitted involves the disturbance of 2,600 square feet of wetlands as well as adjacent wetland buffer areas in order to construct the proposed building and driveway. We also note that while the number of trees to be removed has not been established by the developer, the site is currently heavily forested. While we acknowledge the applicant has avoided locating the building and secondary parking lot within wetland areas, the County Planning Board consistently recommends that construction and alteration of land within regulated wetlands and stream wetland buffers should be avoided. This recommendation extends to the siting of stormwater management facilities. We note that a Beeline bus stop for Route 16 and 77 is located at the corner of Navajo Street and Route 6. We recommend that appropriate pedestrian accommodations be installed along the driveway in order to provide safe access from the bus stop to the building for employees and visitors. As further encroachment within the wetlands is not desirable, signage and pavement striping should be utilized. As proposed site plan includes subsurface stormwater quality and retention infrastructure, We point out that subsurface methods of stormwater management can be of diminishing effectiveness over time if not properly cleaned and maintained. To ensure the continued operability of this stormwater management system into the future, the applicant should provide an enforceable maintenance program that will prevent the system from being clogged with sediment and in turn force a higher amount of stormwater runoff into the on-site streams. We note that stormwater management is especially important to the recycling center due to the possible debris and pollutants that may enter the watershed. The applicant should also be encouraged to explore at-grade stormwater management solutions that treat runoff on-site wherever possible, such as using pervious paving for parking areas or the installation of vegetative rain gardens. Should the proposed building be connected to the Peekskill Sewer District, it will increase sewage flows from this site into the existing infrastructure and will add to the volume requiring treatment at a joint water resource recovery facility operated by Westchester County. Since 2010 has been the policy of the County Department of Environmental Facilities that municipal governments require the applicant to identify mitigation measures that will offset projected increase in flow. The best means to do so is through the reduction of inflow and infiltration at a ratio of 3 for 1 for market rate units and a ratio of 1 for 1 for any affordable AFFH units. The County Planning Board further recommends that the town implement a program that requires inspection of sewer laterals from private structures for leaks and illegal connections to the sewer system, such as from sump pumps. These private connections to the system have been found to be a significant source of avoidable flows. At a minimum, we encourage the town to enact a requirement that a sewer lateral inspection be conducted and any necessary corrective action be enforceable by the municipal building inspector. We encourage the applicant to include as much green or sustainable building technology as possible within the proposed development. We note that no indication has been provided towards utilization of the rooftop. We recommend that the applicant considers incorporating a solar array or green roof in order to provide further environmental remediation within the site. In addition, the town and the applicant should give consideration towards the provision of electric vehicle parking capabilities within the proposed parking lot. Please inform us of the town's decision so we can make it part of our record. We then have a letter from the town of Somers, dated July 23rd. The town of Somers is in receipt of the notice of public hearing for the aforementioned A-Track Recycling Center. While we understand that the use is permitted in the town's light industrial district, we do have overall concerns regarding the use which we will provide to the town of Yorktown Planning Board under separate cover. With respect to the subject applications, it is our understanding that A-Track is seeking a variance to construct a 40,000 square foot building within approximately 100 feet of the town's of Somers border, where a 200-foot setback is normally required when these uses abut a residential zoning district. The application package that we have reviewed includes an alternative layout that places the proposed building closer to Route 6, but would not require a variance. The town of Somers formally objects to the placement of the proposed building approximately 101 feet from the town line when there is a viable alternative available for consideration that does not require variances from the town of Yorktown Code and locates proposed use further from the residentially zoned land in the town of Somers. We have a memo from the Town Conservation Board, dated July 24th. Since the board last reviewed this proposal, the applicant has revised the site plan and requested an area variance to allow a 100-foot setback from the eastern boundary line where 200 feet is required. The proposed revisions do not change or mitigate the original environmental concern raised by the Conservation Board upon our initial review of the project at our March 6, 2024 meeting, which included concerns regarding the two wetland crossings, the severity of erosion along streams located on the property, and increased traffic flow with the subsequent increase in air pollution. Each layout presented by the applicant has significant adverse environmental impacts, and we do not support the granting of a variance. And we have a memo from the Planning Board, Town Planning Board, dated July 25th. At its meeting of July 15th, the Planning Board discussed the subject referral involving the applicant's request for a variance of 100 plus or minus feet from the required setback of 200 feet where property abuts a residential district. As the zoning board is aware, the applicant has an application for site plan approval involving a proposed 40,000 square foot recycling center in the light industrial zone on the subject property. The proposed building lies 100 plus or minus feet from the eastern property line, which adjoins a residential zone district in the town of Somers. The planning board received the site plan application on December 27, 2023, and initiated its review in January. Discussions to date have largely revolved around the characteristics of the use and the proposed layout and siting of the facility that gives rise to the subject request for setback variance of 100 plus or minus feet as cited herein. Early in the process, those discussions became the subject of a request for interpretation whether the 200-foot setback requirement applied in cases such as this, which the zoning board affirmed on May 23, 2024. Until that time, customary site planning issues could not proceed effectively. On June 12, 2024, the applicant submitted to the planning board a package of material which included a statement of its intent to apply for the subject variance, along with various material which included an alternative layout which does not require a setback variance. As of this date, the planning board has not fully examined the merits of the alternative layout, nor investigated any modifications to its general concept. Further, given the focus on setback issues, the planning board has not been able to move forward through such issues as traffic, noise, and other environmental impacts, nor has it determined that most appropriate site layout under which the proposed use will be least impactful overall. Therefore, the planning board, without reaching the stage in the planning process that would afford it the data and knowledge to put forth a site layout that is most appropriate for the site and least impactful to the surrounding neighborhoods and Yorktown at large, the planning board cannot make an informed recommendation as to the regards to the instant application for setback variance. As is custom and practice, the planning board refer to make recommendation to the zoning board of any required variances once it has certainty that it has designed an effective and supportable site plan that required variances clearly support those plans. I would also note that we had a referral out to the Department of Transportation, and they sent back a letter requesting that a traffic study be done for Route 6, which is that part of the, good evening, Mr. Steinmetz.
Good evening,
You
Mr.
snuck up
Chairman.
on me. Is that part of what's going on in the planning board?
Have
We just got it back today, actually.
That will be submitted and made part of the record.
Okay.
Curious question. With the traffic study, I know we're talking about Route 6. If this is coming from all over, Down County, Putnam County, what roads are we using in Yorktown to get there? We're gonna be coming up 132, coming through town? How are we gonna reach the facility?
So let me first, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, David Steinmetz from the law firm of Zarin and Steinmetz. I apologize, I was late. I was asked to pinch hit from my partner, David Cooper, which led me to believe I was coming in the 9th inning, and B, being dead last on your agenda, did not think you were going to get to this item as quickly. So
Surprise.
So I'm very impressed with the speed of your disposition. Is tonight, Mr. Chairman, your final meeting?
Yes, it is.
So I also want to start by saying, when I had the opportunity to pinch hit for Cooper, as someone, Gordon, who has appeared in front of you literally, we're both probably embarrassed to say, over 20 years,
Right.
maybe over 25 years, I am actually happy to be here for your final meeting.
Thank you.
You may not be happy I'm here, but I'm happy I'm here.
I'm happy to see you for the last time.
Well said.
I'll find you in Florida somewhere, Gordon. In terms of roads, I can't answer that. If you want, my client can address that.
So most truck traffic will come through Route 6, obviously. That's where most of it will come through. There will be some local roads used, I'm assuming, depending on where the trucks are coming from. The traffic study, we did study the intersection of Navajo and Route 6, the 6N and Route 6, and we even did some impacts further down towards the Mayapack line as well. So the traffic study addresses multiple intersections from Navajo out.
Are you going to address anything coming in, like, say, from Route 202 or up 132?
No.
Because, again, that's coming through, they got to get to Route 6. How are they getting to Route 6?
Yeah, our traffic study is for the immediate area
Yeah.
from Navajo and Route 6, and I think it's one intersection to the left and 2 intersections to the right.
DOT asks for anything other than that.
Well, and I'm just saying, it's like there's not that many choices of roads, and that's a lot of trucks coming through that were not there before.
Certainly, I would anticipate the planning board as lead agency will conduct a comprehensive review under SECRA. Your question's a great one.
It's one of the reasons why I'm saying it, so that, as it's a matter of record, that the question is
Understood.
being asked.
Understood. And since most of the vehicles that are moving in and out are your vehicles?
Yeah, mostly.
So the overwhelming majority of the vehicles that would be utilizing the recycling center would be owned and or controlled by AAA. They would have the ability to deal with both temporal distribution and geographic distribution. I'm going to take a step back because I missed the beginning. I know my colleague Jacqueline Cohn probably did an unbelievable job, so
You went over the layout, you went over the procedures.
she told me that. So let me start with a general statement and then go through the factors. Obviously, this is an as of right permitted use on this property. So this is a use, this recycling facility is a use that the town of Yorktown, in its wisdom, legislatively has already determined can and may be located in this zoning district. The issue that's before you and not before the planning board is whether we can be 200 feet off of that property line as opposed to the 100-foot setback that we are realizing. I'm fascinated to hear the town of Somers statement on the record. I appreciate you reading that. I had not heard about that. None of us had prior to tonight. Let's just state for the record that it appears that the town of Somers and my friends at the town of Somers don't seem to want to respect that same setback for their light industrial use that's immediately on the other side of that line. The Whispering Pine, which is there, and my client is not objecting to Whispering Pine, but Whispering Pine and its materials and its outdoor storage and its operations and its vehicles and its equipment and its manpower are all located a matter of feet from that property line. So for me, I start with the proposition that we have two different locations that we can place this recycling facility in this building. The recycling facility is allowed in this zone. The recycling facility is a necessary use in the town. It's a necessary use in society. We need a place to bring our materials, both construction materials, our municipal recyclables, our metals, our glass, our plastics. We need a place to bring them. We also, in terms of the green things that we heard from the Conservation Board, would really like to take these items and put them back into the stream of commerce and not landfill all of these items. So what my client is proposing to do is take a recycling facility, which is a laudable concept, put it entirely inside a building with fast rolling doors, all operations, all storage inside that building, a leachate collection system on the pad, and locate it on the site. So the question for your board is, do we locate it as far from Route 6 and as far from the nearest residentially developed neighbors and place it on that portion of the northern portion of the site where it becomes more narrow and our setback from the easterly property line becomes more challenging? Or would the town in its wisdom decide that we should bring it further south, locate it in an entirely zoning compliant location, but probably not the best place? So I start with the balancing test under Sasso versus Osgood and the 5 factors of state law. I believe the benefit to the applicant unquestionably outweighs the detriment to requesting a 100-foot setback from the easterly property line when the town of Somers has its light industrial use sitting right there. So let's go through the factors. Would there be an undesirable change in the community and the surrounding area from locating it where we are proposing it? We believe the answer to that is no. We actually think it is a better location. It is a more desirable location, particularly given the surrounding uses. We believe it's consistent with the character of the area. This is not an area that is residentially developed. There are multiple uses around us presently that are light industrial or commercial. In terms of feasible alternatives, there's definitely a feasible alternative. We've told you there's a feasible alternative. We just think it's less appropriate, and weighing the various factors, we don't think that's the alternative that you should choose. Should your board reject the variance, then we move the building forward and we bring it closer to the road, and we can still run the operation in that fashion. In terms of the substantiality of the variance, a 100-foot variance in a 200-foot zone, a 200-foot setback certainly sounds substantial on a straight mathematical analysis. The case law tells us, however, that we're not just supposed to do simple math on a substantiality test. We're supposed to balance all of the factors. So to me, we start with what surrounds us and what is next to, in particular, that setback. Given the location of that light industrial use, given the sense that it is unlikely that that site is ever to be repurposed and redeveloped, we actually don't think it is substantial given the weight of the immediately adjacent development in that area. We believe that our plan takes advantage of the setback from Route 6, the buffering of our residential neighbors to the south, and we still have 100 feet within which we can adequately buffer even our building. In terms of no adverse environmental impact or effect, It's a secret issue that we're going to have to deal with in front of the planning board, but the questions about traffic, about stormwater management, about leachate collection, they're all critical and relevant factors. One of the first things that AAA did was retain Sterling Environmental. Mark Millspaw and Sterling Environmental is Mark is one of the preeminent solid waste management engineers in our state. He consults with a number of similar recycling facilities that I've worked on and many others that I have not. Mark knows Part 360 of the DEC regulations. He will be our guidepost as we navigate the DEC to get a Part 360 permit. That Part 360 permit will ultimately have a host of environmental regulations in it that this facility must comply with in order to operate. So we believe that there will be no adverse environmental effect. We think that between the state, the county, and the town, this site will be operated the way it's supposed to be. And most importantly, I'm going to go back to what I said at the beginning, but for recycling facilities, we are not fulfilling the environmental goals that we all say we want to actually do, which is not just demolish buildings and bury them somewhere, but demolish buildings and repurpose the materials in some fashion by putting those materials back into the stream of commerce. In terms of self-created hardship, there's no question that my client is asking for this variance, so he's created this variance. But as you all know, self-created hardship in and of itself is not a dispositive factor for an area variance. We believe, given the circumstances here, this is the better place to put it. We think that having the outdoor truck parking in the southern central section of the site is a perfectly appropriate place, but having the actual recycling building in the northerly portion of the site, 100 or 99 feet off of the property line, is the preeminent place to put it. Special circumstances, unique circumstances. This is a really unique application on a very unique piece of property. And I would hope that your board would take those factors into account in ultimately determining where the best place is. I spoke with your town planner earlier today after Jacqueline and I received a copy of the memo. And John Tegeter and I spoke. And I said, look, John, we would love to spend as much time as the planning board needs in order to render some kind of recommendation, but it would be really foolish and uneconomic for us to fully bake a site plan on the northern preferred location and then come to the zoning board and have you tell us, you know what, we really would rather not give you the variance, why don't you put it in the zoning compliant area? He did not disagree with me. He said, David, I wish we had more information in front of us and we could make a recommendation. At this point, we're not recommending one place or the other. So the good news for me is there is no recommendation from the planning department and the planning board at this point that says, do not put this on the northern portion of the property. John just felt compelled, and I have, as this board knows, done numerous matters in front of your planning board, and I frequently ask them for favorable recommendations to your board before I come here. I would rather be standing in front of you with the planning board saying, we recommend the northern location. He told me why he doesn't feel they're ready to do that. I get that. Nonetheless, we're in the process. My client would like to advance. We would very much like your board to, if you are comfortable and if you feel you have enough information, we would like you to make a ruling on the area variance for the preferred location. We're happy to respond to your questions. We're happy to address the things that we're hearing on the fly in terms of, Mr. Chairman, what you have read into the record. Some of these things literally we're hearing for the first time this evening. I know this one isn't easy. I know it. My partner and my colleague Jacqueline have already had quite a bit of interaction with the town, with the planning board, and now with your board. The bad news for you, my client isn't going away apparently. So even Gordon, if you're not going to see me, he's not going away.
No, he won't see me.
That's too bad, and you know I know that.
Generally speaking, though, we don't move ahead with applications without something from the planning board giving us a thumbs up, thumbs down, what do they recommend. They also need the traffic study, which we will probably want to look at also, because as you know, if we consider a variance, we have the authority to limit what can go on if we give you that variance. So we would like to see as much information as possible, so if we have to tailor the variance in a certain way, we can do that. So with that being said, you're not going to get a decision from us tonight, either way. Plus you have I'm sure many people out here that want to say their word too.
Understood. Does the board or staff have questions for us before we yield to the public?
I just had one question on the wetlands, so maybe that's for you. So you're saying the project is 100% viable in the alternative location, but it also encroaches wetlands. So do you envision that that would be an issue getting permits for that, or just, it's just bad to encroach wetlands type of thing? Like, what are you saying exactly with that? You know, would the DEC have to approve it? Or would you get a permit? I mean, because I'm you know, concerned that, all right, you're saying it's a viable alternative and that's how we would do it and no matter what, but I'm not sure that that's
The DEC
totally.
there is a permitting process that has to be had, but the DEC is going to give us it's required and the DEC will give us a permit.
Right, it's a right to have a
Right,
permit,
exactly.
basically.
It's the wetland buffer that would have to go
Okay.
more into.
Is
It's
there
not
a
the, it's not the actual wetlands
That's
themselves.
200. Oh, he wants 100, and we say 200. Is there a middle ground? Like, could it be 125
Well, you
feet?
gotta look at the plans
Full
and see.
activity is
That's
gonna
why the
be carried on
planning
within
board has to
the
give us a
building.
site plan approval, or
Fast
some
close
idea
the
of what
door.
they look at.
Right.
If the door
Right.
is shut
And-
and the
and yet
activity
they
going on
So what am I
inside,
supposed to do with this?
how much noise will emanate out?
Nothing right now.
It's a great question. Are you able to answer that from a DB standpoint?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, the DEC will make us do a noise study every year. I think it's 65 decibels at the property line. That we'll have to make sure that that doesn't exceed that level. So we'll do that study every year. That's when the facility is operating. It's not like, hey, we do the study at night when nothing's going on. So that study will be during regular operations. So that'll always be every year that will be checked and double checked by the DEC.
There is a provision under the New York, and again, I wish Mr. Millspaw was here, but there are specific decibel limits that are prescribed by the DEC in connection with Part 360, and that presumably would be imposed as part of the condition of our Part 360 permit. For a suburban area, from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., it's 62 dBs, and 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., 52 dBs.
And a question for you, the town of Somers, their light industrial setbacks, what do they do? You know that?
I don't. It's funny. So it's a great question that I truly do. Unless Jacqueline, you have any idea what the setback is on the district next to us? I was surprised. I learned about the letter from the town of Somers that Gordon read to the
Now you
record.
identified Whispering Pine, but are they grandfathered? Have they been there? How long have they been there? I know when the districts get changed.
Yeah.
We have Yorktown has a similar program that's shouldn't really be there, but they were grandfathered.
My guess is that they've been there, and my understanding from my client is they've been there decades. Some form of outdoor,
Oh, from Yorktown.
Whispering Pine.
Whispering Pine.
Okay.
some form of that outdoor light industrial activity has been there for decades. But the question to Mr. Tripati's question, I do want to understand the setback. I was surprised that the town of Somers took the position it did, knowing that they're literally sitting on our property line. So,
Based on Mr. Steinmetz's concern of having to try to go to the planning board and get like a fully baked plan, is there some means that we can get some input from the planning board without forcing, you know?
Well, they gotta give us some information. I mean, they're waiting on the traffic study,
Right.
and
So
some other items apparently. and-
So I guess the answer to that is, we don't necessarily require a complete plan, but there are these, traffic study was requested, and there are certain things that they are in a better position to review than we are. So we'd have trouble trying to grant a
I
variance
mean,
without
we
having
we
variance.
understand that people go through a big expense going through the planning board and coming up with site plans, only to come in front of us and risk having that shot out of the water. So I understand the argument from that point of view, but we have no information. from the
understood.
planning board.
So getting, even just the question and the back and forth between and among you allows me, Jacqueline, and my partner David Cooper to go back to John and the planning board, explain this discussion, and we'll explain how much of the cake should be baked before they make recommendations.
Give us some idea
I
of what
get
they're
it.
looking at.
Thank you.
Right.
And the traffic is absolutely
Yeah.
when we're talking about a facility that is all about trucks bringing all of our recyclable material in and trucks bringing that recyclable material out. I get the fact
The
that,
point of what I was saying before is that there's only so many roads
Yes.
in Yorktown, north, south, east, west. And so it's major concern if you're bringing in, how many trucks did we say we're gonna have every day?
Probably between 60 and 100.
60 and 100 trucks every day. So, I mean, it is a significant, it's not just Navajo Street, it's not just Route 6. It's getting to Route 6.
and just while we're on it and while I'm here, because I don't know if I will be at the next meeting, the trucks that are both inbound and outbound, are they governed by state weight limits and they would have to be on certain roads? Pat? So I
Yeah, but
speculate.
but there's only certain, I recognize that, but there's only certain roads in Yorktown that
Totally
can
in-
accommodate that.
Understood. I didn't want anyone to misinterpret your question to think that these trucks would be running all around the town of
no.
Yorktown. I know you know that. I totally understand you do. But it's clearly, as I said earlier, there would be both temporal and geographic limitations on where the trucks could be, both time limitations as well as actual geographic locations. And we could prescribe that certain trucks coming from their Buchanan location are coming up certain roads, et cetera.
Another question, on the site, how much parking facility is there for trucks that are waiting to go into the building to unload?
And I'm gonna queuing and parking, I assume.
Yes.
So in the proposal that we're proposing, there's a lot more road for queuing. So that's also a thing the DEC will look into. So in this proposal, you only have the queuing between the scale house and the building, but in the preferred location, you have from the scale house all the way up to the building. So it's roughly, I think, 1,500 or 1,600 feet from the scale house to the building in the preferred location. The alternate location, not doing the math, it's probably 300-400 feet.
So how much time would the average truck spend inside the facility, keeping the other ones outside queuing?
So with the 4 doors in and out, the open and closing of the 7 to 8 seconds on the doors, we'd probably be in and out of the facility in 5 minutes. Trucks would probably be in and out.
It's just a dump.
Yeah.
That's tipping and.
Yeah, so come through this, no, so coming in through the scale house, going up to the building, backing in, dumping out, and out would probably be 5, I would say between 5 and 10
So
minutes
you're
on
saying
average.
about 10 or 12 trucks an hour?
Yep.
Can go through the facility?
And they would be idling the whole time, or do they shut down?
No, so there, with the way the building is designed and the way with the 4 doors for the construction debris side, there should not be much queuing at all. They should be in and out pretty quickly. It all depends on, obviously, if we get a slew of trucks that come in at the same time, there might be a little bit of queuing.
Right.
But
So-
9 times out of 10, there's
so
not
what
going to
if,
be.
we were talking before about lead and asbestos and liquids, all right? So you're gonna come in, you're gonna drop this stuff, right? Is it inspected immediately, or does it, and so what happens if you now have a problem with the materials that were just dropped? Does that back up the response coming in? Or
No.
Does it slow the process?
So because of the building and the way it's designed, we will segregate that material. So it will not stop any more inbound material coming in. It'll be segregated off to the side. It'll be dealt with based on what's in the permit by the New York State DEC. So with having the 4 doors to access it, we can segregate that to the far. If we're looking at the building, it'd probably be to the far right. It'd be segregated. It would be dealt with. That truck would have to stay in the facility until we decide how it's going to be dealt with. So they would queue outside the building, wait to see if it's going to be loaded back into the vehicle, and that vehicle would leave with it, or if it's going to go into one of the containers that's inside.
That won't
and then we
result
dealt
in
with it
any
later.
delays with the queuing or the operation?
It should not.
What's the square footage of the building?
40,000 total. But like I said, it'll be. If you notice in the bottom, it's gonna have 4 separate areas. First one will be office. Second one will be truck and machine maintenance. Third section will be the construction debris processing area, and the third one will be the commingle/recycling processing area. So the construction debris and the recycling will be separate processing areas. So that won't be intermingled.
So the parking lots that are on the plans, one plan, the alternative puts the parking lot in the area in question, basically. So is that just for the employees or any of the trucks going up there?
So that will be overnight parking for our own vehicles. Trucks that are accessing and using the facility will not park there. It's not long-term parking. That's just for our vehicles at night, because we'll be moving our AAA carting operation to the site, which is why our office will be there and the maintenance will be there. So our trucks will park there overnight.
Okay. So these are the
So the
same trucks
AAA
that are
carting that you're gonna put there, now they handle normal household refuse?
Yes.
In addition, so you've got these trucks on that property, so how are they maintained? And are they washed or cleaned they're gonna be done on this property?
No, they'll be done on a separate property.
And where's that?
Our Buchanan location.
Where?
Buchanan.
Okay.
Are any of the MSW, the municipal solid waste trucks, sitting with municipal solid waste in them overnight?
No.
So they're
They're-
all empty trucks?
Correct. They're all empty trucks that we dump at the Wheelabrator facility in Peekskill.
And they've all been cleaned before they are stopped and stored on
They're
this
not
property?
cleaned every day when they come back. They're usually cleaned once a week is usually how we clean them.
Other questions?
I think we turn to some people in the audience, see what they have.
Okay.
If you want to speak, feel free to come on up. Just when you come up to the microphone, please give us your name.
Hi, I'm Charles O'Neill, President of JOC, Jefferson Village. It's 1,000 units. One of the big problems we have is the storm water right now. Now, the storm water from that facility is going to end up in Osceola, I would assume, because water
We're not
runs
handling-
downhill.
The stormwater management is going to be before planning, not before us.
Okay.
It's a good question.
Hi. My name is Ann O'Neill. I live in Jefferson Village. The gentleman just said that there's going to be 12 trucks an hour.
An average.
Okay, an average, okay. And he's going to be, the hours are 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., so that's
what
12
they're
hours.
That's what they're proposing, but it's up to the DEC permit.
Right, so that would include, he said 60 to 100 trucks, but if you times that, it's 144. Am I right?
I think I did try to clarify that same issue. I think the 60 to 100 is tons. And they regulate, the DEC
It's not
regulates
the way I
tons.
understood it.
I didn't
It's not the
understand.
way I understood it.
I have per day trucks, 60 to 100 trucks.
Yeah, I
And
wrote
he
the
ha-
same
And the
thing.
hours of
Yeah.
work is 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Right,
So
so-
that's 12 hours, and he said just now, 12 trucks per hour.
44.
That's 144. But
So
he
we'll-
said 60 to 100. So already he's changing the plan.
Well, I thought, well, we'll ask him back, but
Okay.
to clarify
Just the
that,
clarity.
yeah.
Thank you.
I did get myself confused with tons versus trucks, so we'll circle
Well,
back
his
to that.
words were,
Yeah.
his words were per day
I wrote the
truck
same
60.
thing. I
Okay,
did,
then we can't be
actually.
wrong. Okay, thank you.
You could both be wrong.
Stop backing it.
Good evening, Jay Copstein. I am opposed to the recycling facility and commercial outdoor truck and container storage on Route 6. The request of the applicant for a variance is detrimental to the surrounding community and residential area. The law firm of Zarin and Steinmetz has represented their client's application well, and to the best of their ability, as they are required and paid to do. The attorneys on behalf of the client have done a great job of putting makeup and lipstick on this pig.
Haven't heard that expression.
When all is said, the board must remember that at the end of the day, it is still just a pig. Forgive me, this thing is making me crazy. There is no compelling need for this board to negatively impact the nearby community and residents in Yorktown or in Somers in granting this application to vary the town's existing zoning requirements. It should be noted, 100 trucks go in, 100 empty trucks will leave, plus the trucks removing the material, and additionally, the AAA carting trucks and containers being stored on the site. The applicant just also spoke about maintenance, which means lubricating oils may be also stored on the site. Again, I request that the variance be denied. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. AC and my knees have been outside looking at that.
Good evening,
Maybe
everybody.
stiff.
Brian Silic, I live in Jefferson Village, Yorktown Heights. I think the whole project stinks, to be honest with you. But just a little pun. But aside from that, we're here as the zoning board of appeals. And I think that the reason 200 feet was projected and is in the law is there's a reason for it. And for the developers to say it won't be developed in the future, they have no way of telling that. I definitely think that the 200 feet should be stuck with. For 101 feet, we should not give them a variance. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Counsel?
Good evening, Anthony Centone, here on behalf of Whispering Pine. My client Tom Cook is over there stewing. I just want to make it clear, we are completely opposed to any variance that would now put this facility within 100 feet of his building. It is true, he's located in Somers, and it's true that he has a commercial business
Do you
there.
know the setback for the property?
It's current, it's supposed to be 200.
No, for your client's property.
It's grandfathered in. I mean, they've been there for 65 years. You're talking about a business that's been operating for.
I was just curious if you knew what the statute, whether he was grandfathered or not, what the statute was.
I'm not familiar with what it is for
Okay.
that
So
property
they've been
line.
there for 65 years.
65 years.
And the Somers site, their districts, that has been redone, like to make it residential, or, I mean, is that how you fit in?
Correct.
And
It's
you- now
it's
you
zoned
close in-
residential, okay?
Yeah.
He is residential, but he's grandfathered in, and so he has a special permit to continue to operate that way. But the problem is, it may not always be. Mr. Cook at some point may decide that he very much wants to move on, sell the property, and it will be used for residential because that's what it will have to be at that point.
Right.
Of course, this will adversely impact him if, again, now this other facility has now been put within 100 feet of his property line there. So we're completely opposed to any variance under these circumstances. And we ask that the board deny any such application. If they have to go closer to Route 6 and, put it where it's permissible, that's fine. They bought the property knowing what the setback was. And so we just want to make that clear.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
one thing to point out, though, if you do review the alternative plan, the parking is kind of in the area that we've been talking about. It's just for you to, I suggest you review the alternative, just to be sure that your position is still the same, because theoretically trucks are worse than the building. I have no idea.
We will take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, members of the board, Joanne Silic. I also live in Jefferson Village. Bet you couldn't guess that. Okay. I'm sure all the people that represent the recycling plant / transfer station, I'm sure they're all very nice, good people. Do you live near this recycling?
You have to
I'm
direct
sorry.
your comments to us.
I'm sorry. Do they live near Route 6? I do. How would they like their real estate values to start going down? To say nothing about 6 a.m. in the morning or 5 a.m. with those heavy trucks? 60 to 100 tons of garbage every day for 12 hours, I beg your pardon, 5 days a week. Would they like that? Where do they live? We have villages that are right off Route 6. You wouldn't want to be awakened early in the morning and hear that. Right now, our real estate is great, skyrocketing. When you hear, what, a recycling station? Are you kidding me? And then he mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, 400 feet away from the residential units or 800 feet? Would they like that at 1,000 feet? And they say there are noise, decibels. I'm a pianist. I have to be very careful when I practice. If there are people around me, I have to be very considerate of that. Are they going to be considerate of that? Oh, yes, there are rules and people checking up on them in different departments. Do any of you want that? I understand that you have to get much more information from your planning board. I have enough information. No.
Just so you're clear, I'm not unclear about your position on it, but just so you're clear, we, as this board, does not have the authority to say they can't build a plant there.
Understood.
It's only the variance. we're
I
looking at.
understand that. Yes, I understand.
So we have to
don't-
look at it as if we say no, and they
Right,
say,
right.
well, we could still build it here.
I understand.
Okay.
Don't bury it.
I get
Thank
it.
you very much. Thank you for listening.
Anyone else? After him.
George Davis. I live off of Curry Street, not Jefferson Village.
No T-shirt.
Yeah, knowing the, I understood the applicant said that the people would be trained by the DEC, right, to do their job,
Right.
but obviously the DEC won't be on site on a daily basis to make sure they do their job properly, right? And having some insights and knowledge of the DEC, usually they show up after something happens, right? You know, if something is not procedurally followed. Mr. Fahey brought up a good point about dumpsters and people putting stuff in dumpsters that doesn't belong. So possibly they could get some hazardous material. And that's not just something you can put to the side. That obviously has to be handled and will be stored there until it could be disposed of properly, should they get it. And then the thing with the trucks outside, if they're just garbage trucks, fine. But if there are open-ended dumpsters or anything like that that have been dumped in the facility, and then rain comes, right, and there is some hazardous materials or something in there, that will go into the parking lot or into the street or into the stream or whatever if it wasn't properly cleaned
You
before.
can get that from the back of a regular garbage
Yeah.
truck, too.
That's all I have, thank you.
So, just a question for you. You live on Curry Street, so that's across Route 6.
Yeah, I live on Timberlane, yeah.
So, you know, the alternative proposal is to put the building closer to Route 6. Do you feel that's better in any way for your?
I'd be honest with you, I've never been down that, since Fire Glow
Right,
moved out of
yeah.
there. I've never been down that Navajo Street,
Okay.
ever. So I know there's a children's little
Yeah, but,
daycare
so
thing.
the alternative proposal puts the building on 6, and you could probably see it from 6.
So either way, no, I prefer
I won't
not to
say
see, I
either.
prefer not to see it, obviously.
The variance method is further back off
Yeah.
Route 6. Without the variance, it'd be actually closer to you.
Yeah. No, then I'll go with that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Ann O'Neill, Jefferson Village. I just wanted to make a comment to what you said, Mr. Fine. And I know that it has nothing to do with discussing today, but however, I just wanted to comment on your comment. You approved a shed on Mr. Garati, I think his name was, and you said that it wouldn't change the character of the neighborhood.
That's one of the 5 factors.
Exactly. But I'm asking you to consider that this recycle will change the character of our neighborhood.
That's one of our considerations.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, sure. Still make his way up.
I forgot to mention, Mr. Steinmetz, I believe that's the way it's pronounced, mentioned that his client is not going away. We are here to stay, and we're not going away. Not going to happen. Thank you.
Sure. Sir, come on up.
You know, as my dad would say, don't call me sir, I work for a living. Good evening, board. My name is Michael Kiernan. I live at 2 Brianna Lane, Yorktown Heights, in Somers Municipality. On behalf of the 89 homes, families on the bordering Somers residential zone, I thank you for the board for eradicating the applicant's perceived ambiguity, he thought it wasn't good, of the code, thus ensuring our residential district outside of Yorktown is considered under the code 300-97. So again, I appreciate that. In considering the variance, I mean, I'm strongly opposed to it being butt up against our border. I think it's only fair that all 4 of the there are 4 bordering residential zones, right? To the north, there's the RO81, and then there's 2 to the south and 1 to the east. Seems only fair to me that we all are entitled to at least the 200 variance. Some other folks have said 200 feet's not enough, but can't say anything more about that. So I appreciate that consideration. You know, I am imploring the board to fully safeguard our neighborhoods and uphold the 200-foot setback in its entirety without reduction. I appreciate your attention and trust and commitment. And just underscoring some of the statements that were made about the loads and stuff in operation. You know, my understanding, like they said, is 800 tons a day. I can certainly tell you that we will hear, no matter where it is, on either locations, we will hear that noise. The building that's going up isn't sound attenuated. It's not going to be, because I'm sure it's not required to be. As far as the trucks go, yeah, I mean, I can't imagine how good a garbage truck's gonna smell that's washed once a week. Probably not great. And also the storage bins that are gonna be stored, I'm sure that those are also unclean as well. So for those reasons, I'm asking that you uphold the 200-foot variance from all of the residential zones. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Council, you want to come back up?
Sure. Couple of quick clarifications. So, Pat will confirm if I state this inaccurately. The projection is for 60 to 100 trucks per day, and what he was presenting in terms of the 10 or 12 was what we refer to as the peak hour, or the busiest hour is most likely. However, to be conservative, I'm told that our traffic engineer, when you get the traffic report and you have a chance to go through it, our traffic engineer was asked to gross or conservatively push that number up, and studied 130 to 140 vehicles per day coming in and out of the facility. So that's the first point. I think my friend Mr. Kopstein, it's the first time I've ever feel like I was complimented by putting lipstick on a pig. So I appreciate the kind words that you wove in there. The metaphor for the pig, this is a permitted use in this zone. So we can't lose sight of that. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to convince you why it's a good thing, because it's allowed. The issue, as I think you were trying to explain to some of our potential neighbors, is where's it best allowed? And that ultimately will be an issue for your board. We do genuinely believe, my client genuinely believes, it's probably better for the entire surrounding community to move it further away from Route 6. We have an option to keep it closer to Route 6. My understanding is, and I don't know all of the surrounding light industrial uses, but there are a number of uses that are in and around their respective property lines. So this area historically has a lot of light industrial or commercial uses that are not respecting a 200-foot setback. Quickly on the fly, Jacqueline and I believe, we're not certain, and I defer to Mr. Santone to ultimately confirm this, I believe that Whispering Pine is in an R80 zoning district, and they are allowed to be as close as 40 feet to this property line. They're not respecting that, but certainly Yorktown has been far more conservative than Somers in terms of ensuring a setback. Our 100-foot setback would be substantially more than Somers would like that property to comply with if it was not pre-existing non-conforming. Questions about the DEC, and I apologize, I didn't, Mr. Davis, Mr. Davis's comment. The one thing that the board needs to understand, unlike other DEC permits, Part 360 permits require regular monitoring by Region 3, by the DEC office. They require record keeping, logs, annual reports, all of which a facility of this nature has to submit to the DEC. So this is not build a shed in an Article 24 freshwater wetland buffer, you get your permit, and you never hear from the DEC again. The DEC is out there on a regular basis for lots of good reason, to protect the facility, to protect the neighbors, to ensure compliance. So I don't want your board to in any way think that the DEC either doesn't really pay attention, or once they permit, they're actually required to conduct regular inspections.
I don't think we ever assume that another agency is not doing their job.
Good to hear, good to hear. Anything else that you wanted me to respond with? We are happy to answer any other questions. You've already told me, Mr. Chairman, that you are not going to close the public hearing. We've already discussed that we're going to go back to the planning board and try to develop that record as best as possible, as efficiently as possible.
A question for you. Does this facility have to be this size? Can you run the operation if the size was reduced?
Good question.
And on the flip too, does it have to be 100? Could you maybe split the difference? Instead of two, we say, oh, it's 200, you want 100. Could there be a split in difference? Could the plans be revised to address something like that?
So one of the things that we did look into, and it's been something that we've discussed, if you could just go back to the preferred plan that we were proposing. One of the things that we have talked about is moving the building closer to the wetlands of the ball fields and asking for a 100-foot variance from that side instead of the side from Somers.
Zoom into that a notch so that it's a little easier for everybody to actually.
Aren't there plans for the ball field? Aren't there something about condos or something going on?
Yeah, so but it would be taking the building and moving it instead of 100 feet off the Somers line, moving it 100 feet off the wetlands line and asking for a variance from the other side. So we could potentially do that as well. But, we didn't want to complicate the matter and come with a third alternate and make it, be more complicated than that. But so we could potentially respect the Somers line to 200, but we would have to infringe a little bit closer on the wetlands line on the ball field where potentially nothing will ever be developed.
Would the orientation still be the same?
Yes, the orientation could stay exactly the same the way it is. So the back of the building would be facing the residential still, and any of the operations in the front, the moving the vehicles, would still be facing the wetlands.
Making a smaller building and a smaller pad, would that decrease efficiency and time inside the building? Does it change the operation? Out of curiosity.
So one of the reasons why the building is the size it is because the processing of the recycling needs space.
Right.
So that's why the layout is as it is, because the machinery inside needs the space to move, as well as there will be conveyors inside that will move material to balers.
It's all, I understand, all designed with the concept of being able to handle 60 to 100 vehicles a day.
Correct.
So if you were to say, well, I'm going to handle 50 to 75 vehicles a day, could the building be reduced within the footprint to give you, to do what you want to do?
So width-wise is the problem. Length-wise, we could probably adjust it, but it's still got to be width-wise. We need that space. For the biggest thing is going to be the trailers backing in that are going to be going long haul.
So instead of 4 bays, you have 3 bays. Could you accommodate the buffers with a smaller building?
It's not gonna change the variance needed for the width is the problem.
Okay.
It might on lengthwise, but widthwise is the issue. So that's why it needs to stay that width.
So I'm gonna jump over to Mr. Fady's side. I wanna make sure you answer, because I don't.
Yeah.
Why 4 bays rather than 3 bays?
I'm just saying.
I appreciate the question,
Yeah.
and I wanna make sure the record is clear. If width can't be changed, explain better why.
Yeah, it's the depth of the building and the way it's positioned. As the trucks back into the building, they need a certain amount of distance. And we want to make sure there's enough distance behind and in front to be able to make sure doors close. So that's why if you look at the width of the building, if you see on this picture, you'll see the 53-foot trailer, which is in the far left, right? It has probably, I don't know, look in here, 10 feet in front and probably 10 feet in back.
Okay.
So if we adjust the width, that 53-foot trailer will not fit in the building. So
Okay.
therefore, we won't be able to get them in, and doors won't be able to close, and we wouldn't be able to operate efficiently or legally.
And I missed that part of the presentation, so I wanna make sure the board is all clear that the trucks are backing in on the long side of the building. Everybody's clear on that? I missed that part of the presentation, so.
Okay. Okay.
All right, anything else?
That's all we have for you affirmatively tonight. We look forward to coming back under different stewardship and proceeding from there.
I think Gordon's going to be on, we're going to have Gordon on a Zoom call, from Florida, just like I
Not if he's that smart, no.
The computer's down, I'm sorry.
He can always be called back.
Leaving his cell phone in Yorktown as he heads out.
Do you have a question, Will? Come on up.
Mr. Steinmetz again compared Whispering Pine with a recycling station?
No, he's just talking about setbacks.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about also. A setback of what's
We had
bring-
asked the question what the setbacks were. That's the only thing he was responding
Oh,
to.
okay, because with all due respect.
No,
we-
he was not.
Okay.
I don't believe he was comparing the two.
Okay, thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, then I move that we adjourn this matter to the September meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Oh, so now we gotta do, wait, we got.
We need the renewal seal.
Yeah, we got, Short, Ahmed,
Thank
and
you, sir.
Ahern.
Thank you. 29. Yeah. Thank you. All good, thank you.
I won't ask you because there are too many people where in Florida.
Track me down.
My wife probably has it.
Somewhere on the West Coast.
All right, I'm on the East Coast. I'll find it.
Good night. Thank you, sir.
I tried to retire a couple of years ago.
I won't use you as a model. Okay, this is the Short application. Renewal of accessory apartment at 1300 Baldwin Road. We have a memo from the building department somewhere in here. Can we just clear the room out as best we can? The hearing is still going on? Where's our memo?
Sticky tabs on them. There's no sticky tabs?
What are we
Ah,
looking
there
for?
it is.
Sticky tabs.
There it is. Memo from the building department dated July 8th. They have no objections. Anybody in the audience have a comment on this application? Okay. I move that we approve the application for renewal of accessory apartment at 1300 Baldwin Road for a permit for 3 years. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ahmed, renewal of an accessory apartment at 1271 Fair Hills Drive. Memo dated July 17th. No objections. There's nobody in the audience, so I won't ask for any comments. Anybody on the board? Okay, move we grant the application renewal of accessory apartment at 1271 Fair Hills Drive for 3 years. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ahern,
Is Tommy talking to somebody?
application renewal of the special use permit for accessory apartment at 2103 Laurel Court. Memo from the building department dated July 17th. No violations, no objections. No one in the audience. I move that we grant the application for special use permit at 2103 Laurel Court for a period of 3 years. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I believe that covers it. So I move that we adjourn this meeting to September. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
One last time. Good night and happy zoning.
Thank you, Gordy.